Nana Shastra Vicharanai Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascha Chadesha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapacharibhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Okay, so we are in the middle of chapter 14, which is the last chapter in the section on Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And as we explained, of course, last night, the subject here is what is the place, or is there a place even, in the whole process of bhakti, of devotional service, for jnana and vairagya, knowledge, not just knowledge. We shouldn't think it's just knowledge, but knowledge of the soul. It really means knowledge of the soul distinct from any other knowledge, and particularly without so much reference to Lord Krishna himself. So, and renunciation, of course, we understand what that means. So the point was made that in the beginning of devotional service, some knowledge of the soul, just in and of itself, can be useful. And some renunciation, at least some renunciation, can be useful, but only in the beginning. After the devotee has really made a start in Krishna consciousness and become a little situated in Krishna consciousness, then the need for that sort of, or not the need, well, you could say the need or the value of that sort of knowledge falls away. And similarly, the need to make some special, like you could say, extraneous effort, which just means a special effort. A special effort to renounce things and to avoid becoming entangled on the material level. More or less, these things fall away. Certainly, at least step by step, they fall away. That's a fact. You know, we are coming from Kali Yuga backgrounds, Hare Krishna, and those backgrounds are problematic for anything, actually, anything really. But particularly, they're problematic. I mean, oh, well, okay. In this regard, Kali Yuga is really problematic for renunciation. It's just, sure, the tendency towards renunciation only by force, in so many cases at least. So for us, even after some time in Krishna consciousness, we may have to be mindful of that type of knowledge. Means particularly, I am not this body, therefore I must be careful to avoid getting caught up in bodily things, bodily attachments, enjoyments particularly. And I am a devotee. My business is to serve Krishna, and therefore I shouldn't. Therefore, I have to remain detached from material things. Otherwise, it'll interfere with my devotional service. So last night, we did read the two verses. They're like classic verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu about what is real Vaishnav renunciation. Well, first of all, Prabhupada discussed what is real Vaishnav knowledge. Sure, we are not these bodies, we're spirit souls, but as spirit souls, our natural duty is to serve Krishna. So that sort of knowledge of the nature of the soul, that's like Krishna Gyan, Krishna conscious knowledge. And then about the Krishna conscious renunciation, anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness, as opposed to, it's the following verse actually in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there 255 and 256, and frankly, they are in Caitanya Charitamrita for sure. I unfortunately don't have the reference here. Maybe tomorrow I can bring the reference from Caitanya Charitamrita. So anyway, what I'm going to read right now is that verse 256, which explains the wrong type of renunciation. Impersonal renunciation, fruitive renunciation, materialistic renunciation. Prapanchi kataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshabi parityago vairagyam falgu kachyate. Falgu vairagya means fruitive renunciation. Just try and get free from one's attachments somehow or other. And the Mayavadis are more into that. So anyway, we discussed all these things. And the principle we discussed of yukta vairagya, using things in Krishna's service, even materially nice things, that at least sometimes, that some people would think if they see us using those things that, oh, you're not spiritual because you're using material things. But actually you are spiritual because you're using those things in nice forms of service to the Lord. And we told the story about Prabhupada and the reporter and the Rolls Royce. Yeah. Then I think the last thing we read was about, it was the warning to the spiritual masters that, because different spiritual masters can be on different levels. In Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada makes the point that even a Kanishta, if he really decides he wants to, can take up the role of spiritual master. I mean, it is not illegal. If someone insists on doing it, who can stop them? People claim to be incarnations of God, and who can stop them? So, but such a person who's really a Kanishta, or not even a Kanishta, not really a devotee at all, they can proclaim themselves to be spiritual masters. But the problem is that there's every likelihood they will become bewildered by certain aspects of things connected with their attempt at being a guru, like particularly wealth and or followers. In order to get wealthy followers, they may give some potential disciple some special facilities, special favors, which the other disciples are not getting. And this will cause a disturbance in different ways. So therefore, we have to follow disciplic succession. And that was paragraph 13. We're going to move on now to 14. And in 14, Prabhupada makes the point that Krishna consciousness is such a process that you don't need to do anything other than Krishna consciousness. You don't need to adopt some other practice to help you in your practice of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. An interesting example. Some sort of practice of, like perhaps mystical yoga, like Sankhya yoga, Ashtanga yoga, or even Hatha yoga. Of course, Prabhupada he approved of the practice of doing exercise just to keep the body fit. But as a spiritual discipline as such, these other forms of yogas are not accepted. That in order to help me chant Hare Krishna better, I will do some whatever pranayam, some breathing exercise or something along those lines, something outside of Krishna consciousness to supposedly help me in my Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is self-sufficient. You don't need to bring in anything from outside. So Prabhupada, particularly in the purport here, it's, what is it, do we say? 14, Prabhupada makes the point that devotees don't have to take up some special practice to become non-violent. Just by being devotees, they're naturally non-violent. They don't need to make some special effort to be vegetarian, because just by being devotees, they'll naturally be vegetarian. It's just part and parcel of Krishna consciousness. So in principle, then, the idea is there's no need to do anything outside of being Krishna conscious. And paragraph 15, I won't go through that because it's simply repeating, more or less actually repeating what 14 has said, as we just mentioned. But actually there's an extra point, yes, it's a fact, an interesting little point. Towards the end of paragraph 15, that people who are non-devotees, but vegetarian, non-violent. So that's all very well, but their vegetarianism and non-violence doesn't make them into devotees. Whereas Krishna consciousness makes the devotees into vegetarians and non-violent people. So Prabhupada says then at the end of paragraph 15, we must conclude therefore that vegetarianism or non-violence is not the cause of devotion. Like certain animals, like monkeys usually, so we hear, monkeys are usually vegetarian and they live simple lives. They don't take intoxication. They don't gamble. So, are they candidates for Krishna consciousness? But no, they're not. Yeah. So being non-violent, well, monkeys can be pretty violent, but they're generally vegetarian. But that doesn't make them into devotees. So vegetarianism or non-violence is not the cause of devotion. And then in paragraph 16, Prabhupada tells the very famous story of Mrigarhi the hunter, which appears in Skanda Purana, but is also told in Caitanya Charitamrita. I imagine you all know that story. That man was he was a hunter, Mrigarhi the hunter, he was called, and he was very vicious to the animals. Of course, hunting at best is vicious, but he was especially vicious. He wouldn't just kill them. He would half kill them and enjoy watching them suffer in pain until they died. But then Narada Muni, and of course it's a long story, but Narada Muni basically preached to him and helped him to understand, and actually gave him sort of mystical visions of how the animals he had been killing were going to catch up with him and cause him extreme pain in the future. So Mrigarhi became a devotee. Then a little later, Narada Muni and Parashara Muni came to visit him, or Parvat Muni, I think Parashara, anyway, one of the two names. They came to visit Mrigarhi. And when Mrigarhi saw them approaching from a little way away, he came running out to greet them, or particularly Narada Muni, his guru, very enthusiastically. But they noticed as he was running out to meet them, suddenly he stopped and he started hopping around in an odd sort of way. And then he ran out after some little time and ran out again and met them. And Narada Muni asked him, "Why did you stop and hop around like that?" And Mrigarhi said, because there was a stream of ants running across the path, and I didn't want to step on them. So I hopped through without stepping on any ants. So like this, Mrigarari, who was an extremely violent person, he became extremely non-violent. He wouldn't even hurt an ant through Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness takes precedence. Yes, so we carry on. Let's say that was 16, 17. Yes, all these things come automatically to a devotee. 18, okay. Now from 18, at least in 18, or from 18 you could say, there's kind of a change of theme, a change of subject or perspective at least, in that now Srila Prabhupada starts to discuss the 9 different processes of devotional service, which of course are given by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here they are. You can see them there in, paragraph 18, hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity in the temple, praying, carrying out orders, serving Krishna as a friend, and sacrificing everything for him. These are the 9 processes, and they are more or less, or at least to some degree, in order, sort of in consequence, sequentially. First of all, you hear, then you can chant. And then when you chant, and of course when you chant you hear also, then you remember. So these things kind of build on each other, at least to some degree. And Prabhupada makes the point in that paragraph, right more or less in the middle, each and every one of these processes is so powerful that if anyone even follows just one single one of them, he can achieve the desired perfection without fail. And he gives the example of hearing. Someone's attached to hearing, but someone else is attached to chanting, and they can both, or they will both, achieve the same success of pure Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, Caitanya Charitamrita says 1, 2, 3, 4, or all processes. It's all very good for you. You know, Prabhupada, though, has, I would say, pretty much specifically engaged us in all of them. Now, of course, the one which is serving Krishna as a friend, that's a part of Raganuga sadhana bhakti, like in a very informal way, what to many people would appear to be not a very respectful way. One is interacting with Krishna. So that's part of Raganuga sadhana bhakti, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, and maybe to some degree just after 10 or 15 minutes now, actually. It's more advanced. And so we don't, as members of ISKCON generally, we don't practice that befriending Krishna. But otherwise, we definitely pretty much do all the other 8 processes. So that was chapter 18, and we go on to chapter 19, and now in chapter 19, the processes are again examined, but along with each one now is the name of the devotee who especially achieved perfection or is especially known for doing that, a particular one of those 9. Parikshit Maharaj achieved the desired goal of life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadev Goswami, simply by reciting. Prahlad, simply by always remembering the Lord. Lakshmi, by serving the lotus feet. Prithu Maharaj, by performing temple worship, archanam, worship of the deity in the temple. Akrura, by offering prayers. When he came into Vrindavan on the request or order perhaps of Kamsa to bring Krishna to Mathura, so that Kamsa, at least Kamsa wanted to have Krishna killed. Of course, he ended up getting killed. So Akrura, as he entered Vrindavan on that mission, he saw Krishna's footprint and fell off his chariot and just rolled in the dust and recited prayers. All right, and then Hanuman became successful by rendering personal service to Lord Ram. Arjuna became successful by being a friend. And finally, Bali Maharaj became successful simply by just surrendering everything. He just surrendered everything to the Lord. So then we go on to paragraph 20, and there the subject is that there are cases of devotees who have actually done all of them. And the particular example given, and is the classic example, is Maharaj Ambarish. He did all. And actually, believe it or not, the whole of this 20th paragraph, and it's about, well, you could even say it's the whole of the following paragraph. They're simply devoted to Maharaj Ambarish and how he did all of these things. And he even in certain, you could say, in certain respects, he actually did more. Not exactly more, but there are subdivisions. So let's go through it and see what he did. First of all, he concentrated his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. Then he engaged his speech, describing the pastimes and activities of the Lord. He washed his hands. He engaged his hands in washing the temple of the Lord. Well, what's he doing there? Arguably, he is doing archana. He's involved in the process of temple worship, looking after the temple for the deity. You could also say it's simply dasyam, just doing some kind of not particularly prominent, important service for the Lord. He engaged his ears in hearing of the glories of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the beautiful deity in the Lord. So engaging his ears, obviously that's part of Shravanam. Engaging his eyes, what's that? Well, it's also part of Archana. He engaged his body in associating with the pure devotees of the Lord, touching their bodies. That's interesting, isn't it? What process would that be? That's an interesting question. It's arguable. It could be part of Archanam, could easily be part of Archanam. It could be part of Dasyam also. like this. It fits in there. Then the next paragraph, almost at the end of the chapter, gives some more examples. He associated only with pure devotees and didn't allow anyone else to touch his body. He engaged his nostrils in smelling the flowers and tulsi offered to Krishna, engaged his tongue in tasting Krishna prasad. That's also part of archanam. It's part of archanam, eating prasadam. Yes, and Prabhupada says that being a king, Maharaj Ambarish was able to offer very nice prasad. He had no scarcity of finances. He used to offer Krishna the most royal dishes and would then taste the remnants as Krishna prasad. So he did everything very nicely in his royal style, Prabhupada says, and just everything dedicated completely in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada raises another point, directly from this. It's like basically the second half of this chapter, paragraph 21 means we're almost at the end of the chapter. So the point is that we should follow in the footsteps of the great devotees and try to do all the processes. Somehow, if we can't, and this one of befriending the Lord, it's a bit esoteric for us, at least do one or two, but do something. Whatever you do, Rupa Goswami makes the point, yena kena prakarena mana Krishna naveshayet. Yena, in this way, kena, in that way, prakarena, in some way or another, mana Krishna naveshayet. Never, always think of Krishna, never forget Krishna. Yeah, so Prabhupada says, if we're engaged in the execution of all the items, like Maharaj Ambarish, then the perfection of devotional service is guaranteed from each one of these items. With the first complete engagement, one becomes automatically detached from material contamination, and liberation becomes the maidservant of the devotee. Yes. So, okay. And then, like we said, this is the end of the whole section on Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. So, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada give a final little comment right at the end, little paragraph there. Srila Rupa Goswami says that the regulative principles of devotional service are sometimes described by authorities as the path of serving the Lord in opulence. Yes. So there you go, devotees. We have now completed the section on Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti.